Sean Diddy Combs will be sentenced to 50 months in prison.
50. That number used to mean his album sales target. Now it sounds more like a prison ID. 50 months. Once the can't stop, won't stop guy, now it's time for him to stop. At least for a while. And you know what's strange? The man everyone called a legend for decades is now just another case file. But this situation surprised me because the rest of the story is the kind no one wants to hear.
John Dickerson, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was just sentenced to more than 4 years in prison. The 55-year-old was convicted back in July on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs had pleaded not guilty to all charges and was acquitted.
Yes, one of the golden children of the music industry. A Howard graduate, he built his own brand, built his empire from scratch. They used to say he had a touch of genius. Now they say he has a touch of violence.
Came from the hood and really elevated himself as a young man who, went to Howard University and would jump on the train and go back to New York City and work as an intern, and worked his way up from an intern to founding his own record label and Bad Boy Records.
They always tell this story, from rags to riches, but no one ever tells the rest of it, because it usually turns into from wealth to wild ego and chaos. And arrogance is not always legal. Diddy bought not only success, but also a sense of invincibility. He thought no one could stop him. Turns out, someone finally did, and the result of his actions proved just the opposite.
He talked about being personally responsible and apologized for what happened with his ex-girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and Jane. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and he said moments ago, I want to personally apologize to all of the victims of domestic violence. He said, quote, I hate myself right now.
I hate myself. That's the moment he realized things weren't going his way anymore. For years, we watched a man worshiping himself on TV, in songs, in music videos. And now that same man says he hates himself. You could see this as a tragedy. I see it as irony. They say everything starts with loving yourself. But sometimes, the price of loving yourself too much is heavy. Was Diddy's apology real or just another production? Because I've learned not to believe any explanations anymore.
We read it and we saw it. Images of gashes and bruises and broken doors, and I saw it in the video. It was savage. This is according to the judge. This is some of the comments that he made.
I think the judge specifically chose the word violent because this wasn't just anger. It was systemic power intoxication. The photos, videos, transcripts, they all say the same thing. This man didn't just entertain people. He destroyed some of them.
I also want to note something that the judge mentioned in reference to Jane. She went by the pseudonym Jane, but this was also an ex-girlfriend. He said he referred to the brutal assault of Jane by saying, you kicked down 5 doors in her home, lifted her off the floor by her neck, punched her, kicked her, dragged her by her hair, slapped her so hard she fell down. Jane, quote, her credibility testified to those things.
According to reports, he broke 5 doors, picked a woman up off the ground and slammed her against a wall, and then said in interviews, I'm a family man. Irony? No. That's just Hollywood. And you know the funny thing about Hollywood? Everything's a show until it becomes real. So is the 50-month prison sentence in this case enough? Or should the price for what was inflicted on people be a lifetime sentence? Sometimes when I see such a light punishment, I think even the voice of justice is reduced to a whisper.
Court recommended 60 months. So when you look at the probation report of 60 months, he comes up with 50 months. The prosecutors wanted 11 years behind bars. It's not quite in the middle, but it's a far cry from the 14 months that the defense was asking for.
The bargaining began. The prosecutor said 11 years, the defense said 14 months. The judge settled at 50 months. In one place, lives are shattered. In another, calculators keep running. At times like this, I realize that justice bends according to everyone's feelings, but the victims are always left with silence. And in all those equations, one thing stays constant. The losing side never changes.
Well, right. So on the one hand, you're saying Joe Schmo comes in, has a Mann Act violation. You want the sentences to be the same to hold up that important judicial principle that all people are. On the other hand, the judge, as Jerika went through, went on at some length about all of this other material And all of the stuff the judge mentioned, is that a part of the Mann Act charge?
Diddy was acquitted of some charges, but the judge still said he'd take those acts into account. So even innocence in America is like a subscription service. That's why crime never ends here. It just renews itself. The defense is preparing for appeal, but I wonder, has there ever been a case where conscience intervened before the appeal? An acquittal doesn't always mean didn't do it. It just means couldn't prove it. That's the part they never put in the headlines. And you don't need to study law to understand that. It was very clear here that there were different opinions and that most of the crimes committed were simply ignored.
Today is the 30th anniversary of the acquittal of O.J. Simpson, and while these are two very different cases, we're still having conversations about what it means when you have a successful, famous Black defendant in these cases. Can they really get a fair trial?
The question on everyone's mind today: can a Black celebrity get a fair trial? But we need to ask it differently now. Can a rich person really be tried? Because it's not color, it's money that usually determines the outcome. Black, white, doesn't matter. Green always wins.
People who gather around, who kind of come and pick sides. What has the reaction been in the wake of this sentencing?
I think you have people that have been out here, some that support Combs and are saying things like free Diddy, and then you have folks who are advocates and wanted to see him face some serious time. An attorney that I did speak to did make clear, though, that a lot of times in these federal cases, people don't necessarily serve the entire time.
Outside the courtroom, another tragic scene. On one side, fans wearing free Diddy t-shirts. On the other, women holding "Justice for Cassie" signs. That scene, it's the perfect summary of our times. People in the middle aren't picking sides based on truth anymore. They pick whichever side seems more entertaining. Now it's your turn. Which side are you on? Do you still believe in justice? Or are you still saying, but he made good music? I can guess the answer.
He looks over at Combs and says, you are going to get through this. There is light at the end to help people like him. You will have a chance, he says, to show your children and the world.
According to the judge's words, there is hope at the end of the light. Maybe. But in my opinion, the decisions made in this case were far too soft. They don't mean much to Diddy. In the end, the ones who always win are the ones who have the green. We'll see it again. We always do. So what do you think about this verdict? Was there really a fair justice system here, or were there darker dealings happening behind the scenes?
You've been through abuse and trauma that most of us cannot imagine, and thank them for coming forward. To Miss Ventura, Jane, and the other victims here who came forward, I can only say your families are proud of you, and your children, when they're old enough, will be proud of you. And I am proud of you for telling the world what really happened. You were speaking to the millions of women out there who have been victims, but feel invisible.
Your children will be proud one day, said the judge. If only we had learned to be ashamed a little earlier. Maybe no one would have to learn to be proud now. What these people went through wasn't a one-time thing. And honestly, I don't think this trial brought peace to the victims. Thinking that a sentence can heal that kind of pain is the most heartbreaking illusion of all. I'm Snorf. I don't polish the display, I break the mirror. And sometimes looking at what's inside is worse than the sentence itself.